Welcome, everybody. I am Jesse Mogul, and thank you for joining us on the American Contingency Podcast. We are a united nationwide community of steadfast Americans ready for any challenge that comes our way. We inform, equip, and train so you can prepare, respond, and recover from any man-made or natural disaster or situation. And as always, it is an honor and a privilege to have you all here for the next 30 minutes or so. Today, I have an excellent guest lined up for you. It's Denny G. He is our brand new American Contingency National Training Coordinator. Also on a local level, he is a city councilman. He's also been on the City and Planning Commission, and he is a former Army paratrooper. As always, you know I love bringing people onto the show. Denny G, you are no different. Welcome to the American Contingency Podcast.
Jesse, how's it going, my man? Good to see you.
I'm so excited to have you on. Denny recently got brought on to be the National Training Coordinator. I'm also on that team, but we had not had a chance to meet yet. We've just now been going through some of our communication channels over here at AmCon, but face-to-face, voice-to-voice, we had not yet met until today. We just spent 20 minutes talking. We could have gone another hour just talking about all the cool things to bring to you all as far as training goes, all of the amazing experiences that Denny G has as far as bringing the preparedness to the prepared, and also helping those like me, who's a novice. So I'm going to start, like I start all of these episodes. What was your instigator to be involved with American Contingency?
Wow. I mean, I think I'm like a lot of the other members that are out there. You know, when I saw Mike get angry at being shadow banned and wanted to just get everybody to get off the bench and get to work, you know, and get organized and you know, have an avenue where we wouldn't have to worry about being banned. We could just work together and do our thing. I think that's, you know, it activated me like a lot of other people. And, you know, I never looked back. It was my opportunity. I saw that as an opportunity to really make something of the preparedness world and bring people out of the shadows that have been doing this on their own in all kinds of corners of the globe in hiding, and just bring everybody out into the open and become one together and start working together and not be afraid of, you know, the mystique that used to be put on it.
Yeah.
So it was a good opportunity, you know, in the beginning for him to start that for us, and look at how far we've come, Jesse.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, a couple of small years and we are just leaps and bounds from when he first made that first announcement online, you know.
The title of that, Get Off the Bench, it lit a lot of people up. I mean, we've already had Lori, we've had Noel, we've had Tom, we've had Mike Lott, we got more coming that are all, I've talked to so many of you already that have said get off the bench is what lit you up. But you in particular, when we were talking earlier, you made it very clear that you've been off the bench for some time, that you have been involved in the preparedness world, that you have been involved at the local community level in the government. You've been doing things that are very active, that to be very leadership oriented and of supporting of the community. And now you're loving that preparedness is getting taken out of the shadows where everybody thinks it's a bunker in Idaho with a bunch of guns and a bunch of cans of beans and rice. And it's actually something that suburban housewives are doing now. So I just threw a lot at you. Let's start with the first question. You have been off the bench for quite some time. What is that like for you to be involved in local government?
So local government was like the next step, right? You know, I grew up in the preparedness world. And so I did this forever, but I stayed in the shadows. I stayed on my own. And, you know, like a lot of us, I think once after you do it enough, you get to a point where you realize that no matter how prepared you are, you can't be 100% ready on your own to survive. You just can't do it on your own, right? You need a backup, you need, you know, resources. So that's when I started getting inspired about local government, because I started realizing, you know, let's find other people that I could network with, that I could bring community together and start bringing it out into the open. I mean, I don't want to say that, you know, that was what happened, but it was a thought, right? And so I just got involved. You know, I just showed up one day, and it's funny. Politics is a funny thing. When politicians see you show up somewhere, they notice you, right? Because you're a new face, and they go, oh, there's a voter. There's, you know, why is he here? Why is she here? And so right away, they want to get in your face, find out what's going on. And then they want allies, right? They want people to be a part of what they're doing so you can join with them, right? So right away, you know, I got approached, hey, you should try this. And I started on the zoning board. And I slowly worked my way up till I got enough guts to run for an election and be, in a bigger position. Government is a strange world because it's not what people think it is necessarily. Most of it, people in the government and politicians, they're there to keep their jobs, and they're not so focused on sometimes what's right. I'm not saying everybody. I'm just talking about in general, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of good politicians out there. There's a lot of people but I think the machine itself, and that's why I've spent the last, 10 years of my life really going out there and talking to people about how they should just get involved, because it's the masses, right? It's like what we did at American Contingency. When we bring enough people together that believe in the same thing, we make a change. And it's the same thing with government. It doesn't change. It's the same thing. They won't even know it's coming. It just happens. And guess what? They embrace it while it's happening because they just want to keep their positions and their jobs, right? They're going to go with the flow of the people. But if the people aren't talking, they're going to go with their own flow.
Yeah.
And it's easy. People don't really realize how easy it is. They set it up so it's boring and you don't want to go and you don't want to waste your time. And if you do, you're like, oh, I'm never doing that again. Once you get past that first couple of times, it's easy to start understanding it.
In my brain right now, as you were saying all that, I'm like, I want to start going to some of these meetings. I've got things to say. I think I'm a pretty good leader. I'd love to I'd love to have my opinion thrown into the mix on why we don't have more 4-lane roads, or why are we going to continue to level down forests and put up more houses when we can't even handle the people that are living here now. And I think you make a great point that if you can just get over the fact that, yes, it's not an amusement park. It is a bunch of people talking about roads and taxes and city type stuff. But this is where you can actually make immediate change. And you're right. If nobody's there, they're just going to side with whatever they think is right because they were elected and that's what they're told to do. But if 50 people are standing in front of them being like, we don't want you to do that, then they just won't do it.
That's right. It's as easy as that. And you should go, and everybody should go and show up, just to let people know that, hey, I'm going to start paying attention, right? You can make the change. I mean, people don't understand. We look at politics as what we see on TV. We turn into CNN or Fox or whatever, and we see all these gigantic hearings at the Capitol, and we say, oh, wow, I can't make a difference there. But it starts in your backyard. All that big show that's on TV for everybody to see, it starts in our local communities. And it gets pushed all the way up. That's how it works. We can't, yes, I agree. We can't show up at Congress one day with a sign and say, we want this. It's never going to happen, right? But if we start on our local level and we band together as a local municipality and we join with other local municipalities, and the next thing you know, we capture our state and we capture our region. And you know what I mean? It just, that's the way it works. And people are so programmed to be understood that it doesn't work. Just don't bother.
Right.
And it's not true. It's not true. It's not true. But you got to be willing, like AmCon. I see a lot of people that join AmCon because they want that instant, I want to be prepared answer. And it's not there. It's not instant. You have to work for it. You have to spend time out of your daily efforts. You have to set aside time to do the work to be better prepared. Same thing with government. You got to take a little time out. You got to spend some of your quality time to get involved, to get tied in, to get networking, and then changes start to come, right? So instead of being prepared, now guess what? Now you start to make your local municipalities more prepared. You start to organize your local area, your neighbors, your city council. Next thing you know, all the rules that are being made, you have input in them. It's amazing, and I don't want to be all waving my fairy wand, to everybody saying that this is really easy, right? Because it's not, it's work, but it does work. It may take a week, a month, a year, depending on how things are and how big your city is. But I'm telling you, if you put the time in, you go there, you give me a call and you let me know it doesn't. And then I'll sit down with you and figure out why it didn't.
So many different avenues that we could go on. But what I was really loving about this is that for a little while there, AmCon got shadow banned. We were on some FBI lists talking about how we were anti-government. We were looking to do this, that, and the other, and we're really not. We've never been anti-government.
Right.
In fact, we support government that's for the people, by the people. And you're talking about people getting involved. Get your voice out there. Now I want to branch off to this idea of not being so reliant upon the government. Like, we want government there. The other day, somebody approached me in a very dark parking lot leaving a concert. This person could have had nefarious means. I'm not really sure. They asked me a question. I said, I'm going to keep going this way. And they actually just walked the other way. Government and the threat of a police force and a threat of going to jail could have stopped that person from attacking me. Or maybe they just weren't really nefarious. I don't know. But as I walked away from that situation, I'm like, that right there could have been something that it ended up not being. And that's where I feel like government and law enforcement play a role. It gives this, there's a checks and balances to people's behaviors. How is it that we can get people to understand that it's not about going against anything as much as it's for yourself, being able to rely on yourself, your family, your neighborhood, your community to help yourselves out when a storm comes in and knocks everybody's houses down or the electricity's out for 2 weeks? What is that messaging, or what is that thought you have around this topic?
That's a really good question. I mean, I have a lot of answers floating around in my head. I hope I don't butcher it. It goes back to the simple fact that, we're all born here to take care of ourselves, right? We make our living, we raise our families, we do our thing, and then we die, right? And the government is really a bunch of us that gets together and looks at some bigger picture and helps make those decisions for us to keep us safe and keep us in the right direction in our lives, so we can continue with raising our families and doing our daily stuff to keep ourselves alive and safe, right? So when you talk about things like, if you start pulling things out, like, say, for instance, you get in trouble and you call the police, right? Well, yeah, you want the police to show up, right? But really, it's up to you to keep yourself safe and to defend yourself. I mean, if you go back to the Wild West, they weren't calling the police. We look to the government to do those things. And then when they fail, we blame the government. And the government almost turns into this thing that is not, it's just us, right? So if we're not helping make it better and it's not working and all we're doing is complaining on both sides of it, why even bother? I look at the government, I'm very involved, obviously, right? Because I think it's important to try and change it and shape it into what it's there for and be a part of that. But at the same time, don't get me wrong, Jesse, I am my own first responder. I'm not telling you I don't call the police if something happens. I'm telling you, I don't wait for them to show up because they may not show up. I've worked in the city of Chicago and I've called the police for people that our houses have broken into, and the police never showed up. After 6 hours, I left. I said, I'm sorry, I can't wait any longer. So yeah. This is the reality, right? So I think in American contingency, being blessed with the situation of being a training coordinator, that's some things that, we want to teach, right? Is especially new people when they come in, is the understanding of the separation of the two, how they could work together. But ultimately, you're here to learn how to take care of yourself. Thank God, nothing bad happened to you, but it's the same thing. It's being prepared, having situational awareness to not get into that situation at first. And then if you do get into that situation, how you can get out of it. I don't want to focus in on just the police angle or the danger angle. There's a lot of other angles as well, supply chain, things like that. But it all comes down to us. And if we all hide and not try to help and fix and make it better, it's never going to work for us anyways. Yeah. So we should be running that. I think we should be running that dual life, right? We should be spending time in government, but just working on making it better and making it function. And as things do, we could rely on a little bit more because we're a part of it and we can control it to a certain extent. But everything else, we should be focusing on ourselves and building our own, I hate to say our own government because it's not like that, but our own support system.
Right.
Our own responders, our own medical, our own food supply chain. Yes. We have our own ASAT team. So we have information now. Information is important. I was so thrilled when I heard we were doing that and we were growing that, because if I had a way that I could only listen to American contingency news and knew that it was for real from on the ground and it only got better and better, I would never turn the television on again, ever.
Right.
Why would I?
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of when we had the social media newscasters, and that's what I call anybody who just shoots things on their phone and posts it on TikTok or the gram. And whenever the train it got derailed up there in Ohio, Pennsylvania area, and that turned into a whole calamity. And they were, burning. I mean, literally fish dead everywhere. There's fires. I mean, they just, the way that was handled was atrocious. But you had these people with cell phones going out there and reporting on things. And of course, then the mainstream media is trying to say, well, don't believe them, believe us, the people who aren't actually there. And I'm a firm believer that I would rather have boots on the ground. And that's what I love about American Contingency. We vet our members. We're all people who actively want to help grow our communities. We want to help ourselves and help others at the same time. Like, this is why when you start talking about getting involved in government, my brain was like, well, are people really going to want to do that? I'm like, wait, the people who are involved in American Contingency are the ones who are proactive. They're proactive members. They're going to want to do something in the government. They're going to want to collect their own water. They're going to want to learn about our categories. And that was something we were talking about pre-microphone. Before I hit record, was that we've got these 12 categories and we really want to make sure everybody is a jack of all of them, the jack of all trades, rather than just having a focus on one or the other. Because you brought up a really great point. In my own cul-de-sac, there could be somebody across the street who's really good with medical, and there could be a next door neighbor who's really good with farming, and there could be a next door neighbor who's really good with firearms training. But if I'm relying on all of them to be around if something goes sideways, then I'm putting myself behind the 8-ball. Because I need to have at least a rudimentary knowledge of those things. Because what if they're all on vacation and the tornado comes through? You have a lot of ideas for the training, and you have a lot of perspectives on this too. How have you seen utilizing our 12 categories, how it can make somebody become a very well-rounded preparedness person?
I'd like to start that answer off by saying that the groundwork was already started by Noel. He was a fantastic training coordinator. He built the groundwork on where we're headed. So I don't want to take credit for anything, right? I'm only taking credit for where he left off.
He was sensational. I'm a big fan of Noel Bishop. He was on episode 4 or 5 somewhere. So thank you for shouting. Thank you for shouting out Noel.
I love Noel, and I worked behind the scenes with him for a while, right? So I got firsthand to see how hard that man worked and how much he struggled with, obviously what I struggle with now too. But secondly, I want to say that our training program is not me. It is our membership at large. My vision of our training, first off, and our 12 categories, I'm not a pro in any of the categories. But I'm good at bringing people together and talking to people and brainstorming and coming up with ideas and putting, information into the right areas, right? So our membership at large is who I lean on to help develop this stuff. But my idea now, going to your question, I look at preparedness this way, right? I always look at preparedness from a newbie standpoint. Because if you come into American Contingency and you're already 50% there, right, you're way better off than a person that comes in and has no idea what's going on. You should be one of the guys helping, or girls, helping the newbies to get up to at least your level, right?
Yes.
What I want to do is set a path or a roadmap. So when you or anybody else at any level comes in, they could first assess where they're at legitimately. They could take a look at themselves and say, okay, in the 12 categories, I'm fantastic at firearms and mobility, right? And I stink at the rest. And then I want to give them the knowledge to first say, okay, well, you should slow down on your firearms and mobility training, and let's start working a little more of the other categories, because you'd want to develop your resilience evenly across the board on all 12 categories. So if a disaster hits, wouldn't it be terrible to just be fantastic at mobility, but be terrible at everything else? I mean, you're done, right?
Great. So you can drive anywhere, but you got nothing in your car. And if you get into an accident, you have no clue how to stop the bleeding.
Exactly. Right. So, and that's great if you have a whole team, you have 12 man or woman team, and everybody's good at one category. I guess that works, but so what I want to do is I want to try to create training so it brings everybody up at the same kind of level across all 12 categories, or at least focus people that way. You could do whatever you want, but the training program will be built that way. So we're kind of building it on, we call it a training matrix. I know this word's been passed around a lot, and I think it'll stick. And so basically, its training matrix is to start to develop the training program on a basic level, and then an intermediate level, and then an advanced level. And for conversation's sake, we would say the basic level is for you to become proficient at being a family responder, right? So if you passed all the courses in the basic class across all 12 categories, anybody would feel that you were competent enough to maintain yourself and your family in a disaster, right? Across all 12 categories. And that's the goal. And then as you move up, you reach, second tier, maybe your neighborhood or maybe your state, and so on and so forth. So it becomes more robust. There might be some people that won't want to go past family, right? And then that's fine. But at least you hit a milestone. So, and we're even thinking about some sort of badging or tagging. So when you do reach that milestone, maybe you see a little, like we have the check marks for vetted members. Maybe you'll see that for being a family responder also on your next to your name and your profile. Now this makes everyone aware of who you are. So the disaster hits in your area, and I go out there to respond to help you out, Jesse. And I go online really quick just to see where all my assets are and who's going to show up. I could see right away, oh, Jesse's already a family responder. So I know he has 3 months worth of water, and he knows how to work a GMRS radio. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and so
totally.
It gives me understanding. So when I show up with a team to help assist, we already kind of know where you're at. Now, we don't know what assets you've lost in the disaster, but at least we know your level. And as other members show up to help, we also understand where you're at on the scale. You might be super high speed, double expert, grand high exalted mystic ruler, right? And when you show up, we know because of your designation. And now guess who's in charge? Right. So I think ultimately it'll help us out longer term if we develop a training program built that way, because it keeps better organization of where people are at across, because you got to remember, American contingency is two things. Yes, it's for your personal growth and building your own resilience, right? But the second part of it, which we all understand, and we're all in here for it, is helping each other out.
Yes.
And so we need that second part, and we don't want to have two ways of doing things, right? We'd rather develop everything once. And as you grow across the board for yourself and for the membership at large.
Yes, you referenced it, so I'm going to bring it up. There's like a redundancy desire whenever I think about my training around the preparedness. I don't just want to know how to stop the bleeding or how to splint a sprained ankle. I want my girlfriend, I want her son, I want my next door neighbor. Redundancy, like you had mentioned, yeah, I guess if you have one person on your team who's good at one of the categories and all 12 of you are there, great. But then I immediately thought, well, that's not how the military works. The military is built upon redundancy. Right. If there's not just one medic on the battlefield, there's 20, and even the casual soldier knows enough about the medical needs that if somebody is there and they need to stop the bleed, they can do things. There's a redundancy built in, and I think that's what I'm loving about our training. I'm all for the badges. I also would love to see magnets for the fridge, but that's just because I want people to come over and see them. I'm just like, hey, look what I'm like a Boy Scout from back in the day. I loved my badges. I was the first one to sew them on my little vest and stuff. So I'm like, can we get some magnets and put them on our fridge? And when I think back to when I first joined the team to help run the My Ready Plan website, which is helping people understand their preparedness and where they're at by taking a test and saying, okay, these are where the areas. I remember our old logo used to be, it might still be, a fire extinguisher, and I didn't have a fire extinguisher. So I remember how excited I was to call up Tom and be like, I just bought 2 fire extinguishers. I'm so excited right now. I'm officially getting prepared. And we had a good chuckle about it, but he's like, but that's as simple as it, like, you can literally just start with that and then grow. And I think a lot of people I talk to who are just as neophyte as me come in thinking, oh, I need to be able to set aside $1,000 and buy all of this stuff. And I need 3 months worth of food immediately. And I need a generator and I need, 4 months supply of gasoline. And I'm like, let's pump the brakes and just ask yourself, do you've got 3 days worth of food and water? Do you have some light sources? And, do you have a fire extinguisher?
There's no doubt about that. I mean, it's really easy for somebody to come in and just be like, well, I need to get everything right away. It's putting the work in. It's building that up, right? I mean, yeah. Don't get me wrong. If I had $1 million and I could go spend it on a underground bunker and pack it full of stuff, I'm in, right? But realistically, that's not for real. So it's helping, foster that environment of doing exactly what you said, honoring people that did make the first step. So what that you've had a fire extinguisher your whole life and it's no big deal anymore. For them, it's the biggest thing in the world. We should be fostering that. We should be lifting them up and congratulating them, because it just turns into this virus, right? And then all of a sudden they're in a frenzy, and then they have 4 fire extinguishers when they show up somewhere. And that's kind of it, right? And it's kind of trying to figure out ways to build that into, training, just to not only do that if individually, but also put that into other people's minds as well, to work together, to teach people how important it is. Just make a step.
Yes.
Make a small step, and then make another small step, and then make it. And then my job is just to try and keep you even. So when you do show up to an event and you've got 5 fire extinguishers, they're going to be like, Jesse, you're awesome, man. These are the best fire extinguishers I ever saw in my life. But let's take a break in the fire extinguishers, and we're going to work here now. Right?
Exactly. Jack of all trades. Let's move you around to different categories, Jess. And I love you talk about the celebrating the small ones. So I do a lot of work in the addiction recovery field, and what I talk and teach and coach around isn't just for those in addiction recovery, but also their families and their support system, to celebrate the small little victories, because that little reward, it's just like we're all little kids inside. We want to feel good about something we've done. We want people to pat us on the back and say, congratulations, you bought a fire extinguisher. That was super awesome. What are you doing about water, right? Like there's always a little bit more. So it's like, let's celebrate. And then let's think about what's the next one. It's like, on to Cincinnati kind of mentality, football reference there. So you have been involved in this world for quite some time. Like I said at the beginning, you've been off the bench for a while. What is that like for you to come across people who are neophytes in this world of preparedness? Similar to me, although I've certainly been in it now for over a year and a half. So I know more, even though I haven't done a ton, I know more. But what's it like for you to tap into that very newbie and say, let's get you going, and then watching them start to accumulate things, and then noticing how that emotional and psychological resiliency they feel about themselves begins to increase?
Well, I mean, I know you're in that addiction world, and you're a leader in that world. So it's the same thing, right? It's the feeling you get when you have the ability to help somebody or show someone something they've never seen before. And the thrill they get, you get a little bit of that thrill too, right? And it feeds you, it feeds what you're doing. And, I love that, I love that feeling. I don't do it for that. I love it, when it happens. I do it because every person that we get that comes online, and we make them stronger, I look at it like that's one less person we have to worry about in a disaster. And that's one more person making our world better. So one day we can maybe alleviate the disasters, right? Because we're all on the same page. We're all working together. We're all have foresight enough to stop. I mean, we can't stop a natural disaster, right? But, we could all work together to see them coming, to work together to move each other out of the way, things like that, right? So for me, it's one of those things where it's just propelling what I've been trying to do my whole life into a whole different realm. But that feeling you get, when somebody new comes online and they ask that first question, and I don't care if I've heard it 100 times, even 100 times in one day, I'm still excited to answer that question again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just so great. And I just hope that feeling, and I know it is, I know that we have a lot, hundreds and hundreds of great members that I've met, and probably hundreds more that I haven't, that feel the same way as I do. And I just hope that they, even if they're listening to this podcast, that it reminds them that when they see somebody come on and has that question, don't be afraid to put it back out there again. Don't be afraid to regurgitate some old information that we put up 3 months ago, because you're afraid that somebody will say, oh, we already saw that. That's not our environment, right? Get it back out there. Share that information. That's why we're all here. We're all the trainers. We're all trainers for American Contingency. I just happen to have the title, so I get to wear the, orange vest and direct traffic a little bit. But really, we're all, at the local levels, we're all helping each other. We're all training each other on our own. So and I want everybody to feel what you felt, what I feel, when that happens. Because once they feel it, guess what? How much stronger are we going to be as a community when
so strong? So strong. I'd call you a little bit more of an air traffic controller than just the guy on the runway. Like maybe I'm the guy on the runway, but you are definitely my air traffic controller. I'm going to get you out of here on this. It's one of my favorite questions to ask. This podcast is available nationwide. In fact, it's available all around the world. So in a way, theoretically, this message could reach every single human being on this planet. What is a message you would like them to know from you about anything that is anything?
Wow. I mean, I guess just that we're all in this world together, right? And so we need to understand that no matter what our views are, no matter what our feelings are, when we meet each other out in the street, we should have that common respect and courtesy for each other. And if we do, we never have to be afraid of anything. We would all live such a great life, you know? We don't have to like each other. We just have to be respectful to each other. And, and I think if more people could hear that message and just try it, an extra smile at a cash register, hold the door open for somebody. I mean, it's like a virus. It'll change everything.
Yes. That's beautiful. I heard something recently where somebody's like, just because you lost me as a friend doesn't mean that I'm your enemy now. And it just makes me think, like, I meet all these strangers, and yeah, there's certain people that rub me a little bit the wrong way, but they're not my enemy. I don't wish them ill will. I don't hope that things badly happen to them. I'm just like, you can exist over there and I can exist over here. But if a tornado, a hurricane, or aliens attack, or the zombies come, sure. I got your back. Just give me a holler. Let's gather our resources and let's fend off the zombies for as long as we can.
I mean, people don't realize that stuff until it's too late, and when it's too late and you have to rely on everybody else. And then that's one good thing about the military. That's what teaches some of the people who are in the military know. You realize right away, you have to live by that code, because there's going to be a time where you need that person to your left or your right or whoever's in the room. You don't even have to be, in the same unit. But that they're wearing that uniform, they're going to be there and they're going to help you and do the task, right? And it's the same thing. We could be the same thing out here too. It's the same exact thing. And so for people to think about that now, it just makes us so much more prepared and so much better than having to deal with it when, everything goes terrible, or everything goes south. And if we do it now, I'm telling you, we start doing it now, and we get the whole world on board, or at least all of America would be nice on board.
Yeah, let's just please come on, U.S. Stop going at each other's throats.
Life is going to be so much better. But anyways, you had a big answer, and I wanted to give a big question. I had a big answer. How's that?
I mean, you crushed it out of the park, right? we're only as strong as our weakest link. So let's all help each other raise up and get stronger. We've got 12 categories. We've got lots of information for people out there, not only on the website, but there's the whole membership platform. Denny G, you have been fantastic on the microphone. You are coming back. I just want to let you know, you will be back on the show. I just want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. And keep up the good work out there.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll be continuing this conversation off the microphone, but for those of you out there, you're looking for a little bit of certainty in an uncertain world, then we are here to help you. American Contingency, we are here when you're ready to build the skills, the network, and the confidence to be ready for whatever comes next. Join us at AmericanContingency.com. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.